Welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of giving my Seiko 7548's a bit of a freshen up with some new gaskets or seals if you like. If you haven't seen part 1 and you'd like to check it out, I'll leave a link in the end screen. These parts have just come in, so I'm just sorting those out. I'm going to put the crystal gaskets aside. I'm not going to replace the crystals at this point in time. I've already cleaned up all the parts, ready to go back together, so I'm just going to get a bit of silicone grease on these gaskets and then we'll get on about putting everything back together. The second half of the video I'll do, well, first up we're going to do the Pepsi, and in the second half of the video we'll do the 7000, which will also include, I'm going to change the hands out on that as well, but I've sort of abbreviated that video down a little bit because a lot of it's just repeating what we'll see with the first one here, other than the hands getting changed. Crown gasket needs to go in before you reinstall the stem because there's not a lot of working room there. As you can see, it's fairly tight. Now, before the stem gets screwed back into the crown, you've got to apply a little bit of Loctite to the thread. I'll throw a diagram up on the screen so you can see how the crown and the stem goes together. Once you get the spring and the washer on the crown side, you can grab the other half of the stem and you need to line up the flats, and then you can go in at a 90-degree angle and compress the spring and just twist the other end of the stem around, and it locks in and it's held in place under the spring tension. I do apologise for the rubbish camera work, but there's the finished or assembled crown and stem. Even though the gaskets were well and truly past their use-by date, very little if any moisture's got into the watch, other than a little bit of tarnishing on the chapter ring, but the dial's in really good condition, there's no need to do anything with that. And the minute and the hour hand just needed a light polish. I think it's worth a mention when you're replacing the batteries or removing the battery in these 7548's, the battery holding spring is actually under tension, so when you undo the first screw, you'll inadvertently launch that screw clean across the room if you're not holding onto it. Also, on the crown side of the battery holding spring, under there is a small flat washer, and you want to be careful you don't lose that as well. I'm just checking here that everything's working fine before I go any further. In the first video I mentioned that the spring and ball, or the click ball, was really badly corroded. This can be a bit of an issue with these watches. Also with the 7002 divers. I had to very carefully drill the old one out. The ball size is actually 1mm and I've picked one up in stainless steel. They're not too hard to find. The springs can be a little harder to come across. What I found also is you can pull the spring bar apart. Actually use the spring out of a spring bar, works quite well. Alright, the bezels just click back on these fairly easily. You don't need to press them on with a press or anything. Okay, so we're all done with the Pepsi. Now we can get on with the 7000. Everything's pretty much the same, except I've replaced the hands on this second watch. Well, that's about it for these two watches. They're all sorted out with the new seals and gaskets. They've had a nice little clean up. My intention with these couple of videos was just to give you a look at what I've got on the bench at the moment, what I've been working on. I thought you might find it interesting. Might even help a few people that are getting into these vintage watches. All that said, hope you've enjoyed the content. I thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.